Governor's Island's unique location in New York Harbor has allowed the area to be treated as an asset to New York while remaining separate from the city itself. Prior to the arrival of European settlers, the island was known to the Lenape Indians as Pegang, a name meaning nut island in reference to the many nut trees that once naturally grew there.
The first Western settlers to the island were the Dutch in the early 1600s. By 1664, however, the British had taken the island and aimed at converting it into a place of residence for British governors, the source of the island's modern title. After the American Revolution and consequent American acquisition of the island, the operation of Governor's Island became geared primarily toward military use. Fort Jay, intended to provide heightened defense to New York's coast, was built in 1794.
In 1800, New York State gave the island to the federal government to be used by the United States military. Soon after, Castle Williams, intended to further the fortification of New York Harbor, was constructed on the island. Governor's Island was used by military troops during the War of 1812 and further employed as a place of military quartering during the American Civil War. Castle Williams was used as a military barracks during the Civil War, and along with Fort Jay, as a prison for soldiers captured from the Confederate Army.
Military use of Governor's Island extended into World War I. By the beginning of the 20th century, however, expansion of the island through the addition of landfill from the building of the Lexington Avenue subway line had increased the island's area from 70 to 172 acres. Liggett Hall, which could house an entire Army regiment, opened in 1930 and operated throughout World War II.
In 1966, the Army transferred control over Governor's Island to the Coast Guard as a place of communal residence. By 1996, the Coast Guard left Governor's Island, which in 2003 was transferred to the people of New York after centuries of military application. Since 2001, Fort Jay and Castle Williams have been part of the Governor's Island National Monument, which, in addition to the rest of the island, are currently intended for communal benefit and public enjoyment.
To determine whether the regions closest to Governor's Island were in dire need of open space, the amount per person and the percentage of open space were examined. This map, displaying open space in the 5 boroughs in green and the institutions in blue, clearly depicts the deficiency of both of these amenities in Lower Manhattan and West Brooklyn. Our conclusions display the lack of open space in the Lower East Side, Lower West Side, and Wall Street areas of Manhattan, as well as the Red Hook, Brooklyn Heights, and Greenpoint areas of Brooklyn in evaluation against the city as a whole. The lack of open space in these 6 neighborhoods displays the importance of providing these residents with increased park space in a setting already wanting in nature.
The public's opinions and preferences were the most important factors in determining our plans for Governor's Island. To verify the public's standpoints, we surveyed and interviewed Brooklyn and Manhattan residents. We surveyed Brooklyn residents from Red Hook and Brooklyn Heights, as well as people from Battery Park, Wall Street, and Union Square. We approached people in parks and on sidewalks with a display board that illustrated the current state and history of Governor's Island and their proposed plans.
In the lower tip of Manhattan and Brooklyn, and this is a map of Governor's Island, and there's a fort over there.
Oh, that one.
And this is a ferry station on the island, so it's easily accessible through ferries. And this is the park on the island called Nolan Park. So here are some proposed plans for the island. People want to further develop the parkland and make it more green and have more shrubbery. And they want to have a theater over there for concerts and plays. And they also want to have a water taxi beach.
A total of 91 people were surveyed. Of these 91 people, 33 people were from Brooklyn and 58 people were from Manhattan. The persons surveyed were asked 4 yes or no questions. Our first question was whether or not they have heard of Governor's Island. The majority of people from Manhattan were familiar with Governor's Island. However, more people from Brooklyn were not familiar with Governor's Island. We then asked people how often they visited parks. Do you go to parks often?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Moderately.
I do.
Well, I'm here.
You like to go more, but in the summer I go more.
The majority of people replied that they do go to parks often. We also asked people if they felt that New York City provided them with enough green space or park space. This was done in order to test our idea that New Yorkers needed or wanted more green space, and whether people would actually use Governor's Island if it was developed into park space. Does the city provide enough park space?
Not so much.
I think they could do a lot more.
Not really.
More parks are always good.
No? No, okay.
We're always looking for nice outdoor areas.
It could be better.
Not enough parks.
Can there ever be too much? I mean, what's enough? You know?
That's why it's a city, so it's an urban area.
Yeah.
All right. As much.
Although the disparity is minimal, we discovered that more Brooklyn residents are not satisfied with the amount of green space or park space provided by the city. After providing a brief description of the proposed plans for Governor's Island, we then asked if they would consider going to Governor's Island on their free time. Would you go to Governor's Island?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yes.
I would go. Yeah.
If it's free to get. I was actually planning to.
Yes, I would. Yes, I've actually wanted to go there.
Most definitely. I'm going to go check it out.
Many of the people we surveyed replied that they actually would go to Governor's Island based on the proposed plans illustrated on the display board. We then gave them a checklist of attractions to determine what would effectively draw visitors to the island.
Amusement park.
The surveys indicated that restaurants and cafes were wanted the most. Seasonal sports, seasonal festivities, theaters, and bike riding were also highly favored. These results encouraged us to make plans that catered to people's preferences. Our idea that more residents wanted more park space was not significantly supported by our data. We also consider that these results could be an inaccurate representation of the studied areas due to the small sample size of 91 persons. In addition to that, the definition of open space or park space may be perceived differently by a variety of people. Nevertheless, our results from the survey influenced our plans towards providing more attractions and facilities than we originally intended. However, we also decided on green space designated areas that would uniquely complement our attractions.